shines inside of me. Light brings us all together. One light inside you and me. One light shines in every person that I see. It's the light that shines inside of me. It's the light that shines inside of me.
I would invite you now to relax, sit back in your chair, just let your mind go to rest, and consider these words from our prayer for inner peace. I open my heart and mind this morning to the presence of God that is within me and in everyone and everything, that one power and one presence. I let God's peace fill my being. In this presence I am peaceful, poised, confident, and strong. I relax in God's loving care and release all my cares, knowing that God is upholding me and sustaining me in all that I do. God's presence calms me, quiets the storms around me, and leads me to a place of perfect peace. As I center myself in that peaceful presence this morning, I let go of every concern and relax in the safety of God's love and in the love of those around me. I find Unity of Port St. Lucie a sanctuary of love and peace, and I am open and receptive to receive all that has to soothe my mind and soul this day. And so it is. Amen. If you would join me in our statement of faith. There is only one power and one presence in my life and in the universe. God, good, omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence. And our core values. Unity of Port St. Lucie encourages diversity, embraces harmonious and creative pursuits of judgment and knowledge in a safe environment to achieve balance and wholeness in the world. Well, this being the first Sunday of June, all you June babies out there, raise your hands so we can wish you happy birthday. Look at them all. Woo! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to babies. Happy birthday to you. Congratulations. Our first congregational song this morning is Victory is Mine. Please stand.
Victory is mine. Victory is mine. Victory today is mine.
I will have to chastise the graphics department once again. I don't know what happens there. Okay, our daily word this morning will be read to us by Nancy. There you go.
Good morning. Today's daily word is healing. My thoughts, words, and actions affirm divine life. Today I give thanks for the constant activity of divine healing life, especially when my body is experiencing illness. To bolster my awareness of my capacity for healing, I pay my attention on my inherent wholeness. I affirm life in my thoughts, my words, and my actions as I care for my body and meet its needs. My faith assures me that illness is not the truth of me, nor is it an enduring reality. Through my actions, I am affirming wholeness as my true nature and encouraging my healing. Even when I'm not facing illness, I greet each day by blessing my body, affirming my wholeness, and the ongoing activity of divine life in every organ, every cell. I give thanks for the gift of divine life by giving thanks for my healing and living joyously. If you can read today's affirmation with me, my thoughts, words, and actions affirm divine life.
So we close our eyes and begin to relax deeply in our seats. We allow the chair to support us completely as we release and let go, as we sink into it. We allow our shoulders to soften and drop gently. We soften up our necks, our faces, our lips, our eyes. We scan our bodies briefly. Relax everywhere. Wherever there is tension, wherever there is stress, we breathe into it gently. We move our attention now into our heart space. That space in the solar plexus we call our heart space, the symbolic throne where sits our Christ nature, that which we truly are. We rest in a conscious awareness of our true nature. remembering that we are created in the image and after the likeness of God and have all the same attributes. In this moment, we acknowledge that truth. We breathe into it. We become one with it. Right now, as we simply be, no doing, no thinking if we can avoid it, just being. We focus on our breath as a means of focusing. Just the breath. Knowing that when we take it in, it goes right where it's needed. It does its job effortlessly, easily, perfectly every time. We rest in that magical process. Having connected with the truth of who we are, we embrace all of our powers, our spiritual powers. Particularly this morning, our power of imagination, pure imagination. We open ourselves up to using it with expertise in order to change our world. Together we sit in the silence, in awareness of the spiritual power of imagination. And then very slowly, gently and lovingly, we return our attention to the outer. We take a deep breath and awaken our senses once more, all of them, as we bring this experience into our day ahead, into the week ahead. This experience of reminding ourselves and doing it in community of the truth of who and what we are. We open up our eyes as we're ready, and we come together in song, singing about the bond of love. Good morning again. I'm looking out there to see those of you who were not necessarily sitting there earlier. Welcome to all of you. What a nice group of people. You know, before I start my talk, I have to tell you my prayer partner lives in Phoenix, Arizona. And every Thursday morning we have an hour together by phone. We've been doing that now for about 14 years. And for the first time, since this pandemic began, she joined us live 2 weeks ago. And I didn't see you last week, so I didn't get to share this with you, though I shared it with Sherry. She texted me immediately after church. She was so wildly excited. She said that she got turned off to this whole idea of watching Sunday services live on YouTube or Facebook or Zoom because she just was missing. She didn't feel the connection. She longed for that connection. And she said, I have to tell you, I felt it with your group. I felt it. She said, I could actually feel the love. And she said, the sanctuary behind you is beautiful. It's just beautiful. She said it doesn't detract from the message or the music or whatever else is going on up here. It actually adds to it. It complements it. She just went on. And she's been a minister for longer than I, and I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was absolutely beautiful feedback for us all to have. So there's that. So if you're watching this morning, Sandra, we love you. Title of my talk today is See It Right. See It Right. The color of this particular power that I'm going to talk about today, the power of imagination, is light blue. The stones are in the back, light blue stones. Feel free to take one with you to remind yourself about the power of imagination. And the center of that power is right here. Those of you who study chakras know that that is the third eye. Well, in Unity, we call that the seat of our imagination, the power of our imagination. And the disciple, the apostle, the follower of Jesus that Charles Fillmore chose to represent the power of imagination is Bartholomew. The Unity affirmation for imagination is on this slide. My imagination brings possibilities to life. My imagination brings possibilities to life. There's a popular expression in Unity. I know that those of you who've been in Unity for a bit have heard it. It says, we set things right by seeing things right. We set things right by seeing things right. You know, it's believed that Michelangelo spoke of his sculpture, David, when he was working on it, and someone asked him about the marvel of his work, and he said, the sculpture is already complete within that marble block before I start my work. It's already there. I just have to chisel away the superfluous material. Imagination. Think about his power of imagination, that he could see that magnificent. Have any of you seen it up close and personal? Quite a few of you. What a blessing it is, because you could even see the veins in his hands. When I stood there and looked at that, I couldn't, it was almost incomprehensible to me how someone can do that. How can you chip away at marble and come up with a perfectly defined vein in someone's hand, not to mention the entire body? Imagination is the chisel we use to sculpt our reality, friends. Just like Michelangelo, it's the chisel, it's our chisel. We chip away at the superfluous to get at what is true and meaningful, and what is loving, and what is peaceful, and what is joyful. In a book called The Secret, which sold over 50 million copies worldwide, It was suggested that people use scissors and glues, scissors to cut out images out of magazines, images of things that they wanted in their life, and glue to put those images up on a board, a poster board or a board, and create a vision map, a vision board. Millions of people followed that recommendation and reported miraculous results. In Unity, we've been teaching people to do that now for over a century. The power of imagination. Imagination is our scissors and glue, is what it is, our scissors and glue. Such power. Consider this story about a young mother who takes her daughter to a psychiatrist. Mother explains to the doctor that the girl thinks she's a chicken. The doctor soothed mom, saying, an overactive imagination is not uncommon in young children. He then asked how long the girl suffered from this delusion. Mother thought and said, no, it's probably about 2 years. The doctor was shocked, and he said, your daughter has been imagining she's a chicken for 2 years? Why have you waited so long to bring her in? And the woman hesitated, glanced down in embarrassment, glanced up at the doctor, and said very quietly, we needed the eggs. The young people are laughing. I think you're laughing at the joke, Paul, unless there's something else going on. I did good if I made the teenagers laugh. Such a power is imagination. Such a power. Albert Einstein once said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Imagine that. Imagination is more important than knowledge. In the 12 Powers, Charles Fillmore wrote, it's through imagination that the formless takes form. It's through imagination that the formless takes form. In her book, Divine Audacity, Reverend Linda Martella Whitsett, beautiful Unity minister, beautiful on the inside and the out, wrote, imagination is our powerful capacity to picture what can be. And by holding that idea and developing it until we feel its effects while it's yet unmanifest, to live into that idea until it essentially becomes our reality. In a sense, imagination is our primary power, because it's essential for the cultivation of all of our magnificent spiritual capacities. It's one of my favorite powers. I know we're probably not supposed to have favorites, but I do. We can use imagination, friends, to change not only our own lives, but to serve others. We can use imagination to change the world. Recently, I've begun using it as a sidecar to prayer. As I dove into the 12 powers for the year and began to think about each of them maybe differently than I ever have before, taken my understanding of them to a different level, I began to use imagination as a sidecar to prayer. In prayer, I always affirm positively that which I cannot or someone else cannot necessarily picture. I affirm positively that which I cannot picture or someone else cannot picture. Add imagination to that process, and the prayer becomes extraordinarily more powerful. When something appears to me to be toxic, when someone for whom I'm praying asks to experience some kind of change that serves their intention to express their Christ nature, I can close my eyes and I can picture events, relationships, or circumstances changing in a way that's peaceful, that's loving, kind, compassionate, respectful. I can picture it. I can picture it, and I can keep picturing it, and then picturing it again and breathe into it until it actually manifests. For example, if someone asks me to pray for an unharmonious, a disharmonious relationship to heal, I can close my eyes and picture that person and the other in relationship that's where they're both smiling at each other, genuinely, where they're looking into each other's eyes, where they're listening from their hearts. I can picture that. So I affirm it in prayer, and then I picture it. Prayer and imagining for ourselves or others is of great service. It's how we can help. When someone or myself am troubled, I don't run around trying to set it right anymore. Used to, not anymore. I don't. It's far more powerful to see it right, to pray about it and then see it right. Those other things are temporary fixes, and you expend a great deal of energy doing it. For what? Short-term results at best. When we run around trying to fix, advising, interfering, controlling, that's not real service, friends. Sorry to tell you that, but it's not. Praying affirmatively, seeing things right, is grounded in the truth, is grounded in principle, is grounded in our belief system. I can't set anything right, but I can see everything right, everything. No limits. I can see it with clarity. Just like Steven Spielberg can make a movie that influences tens of millions of people around the world, I make my own movies with the pictures in my mind, and then I breathe into them, and I focus on them, and I lean into them, and I affirm them positively in prayer until they become manifest. As I began to map this talk in my mind, a very practical, very sensitive, and very powerful example came before me, and I'm going to share it with you. I love good fiction, friends. I stopped reading it for a number of years because I was spending all my time reading philosophy and spirituality and reading about religion, and all of that's good, but I missed my fiction. So I've been reading it again. Years ago, I used to get the Sunday New York Times, and I would go right away. First thing I did was to the New York Times bestseller list. I needed to read those book reviews, and I needed to check off which ones I was going to read next. That's where I got my recommendations. Well, I stopped buying the New York Times right about the time it became like, I don't know, $10 or $15 or whatever it is. And who needs all that paper to recycle? So I go online now, and I research that database or any other database that I respect and find out what's good based on the critics I believe in. I did that recently, looking for a piece of fiction so that I could download it onto my Kindle. I don't buy paper books anymore unless it's a spiritual book. And there was the name John Grisham. And I'm like, you know what? It's been a couple decades since I read Mr. Grisham. Let's check that out. I like good mysteries. So the book that was released a month ago is a book named Lucie. Lucie, a month ago. Well, by now, a month and a half. A mystery. I got all excited. No, it's a basketball book. Who knew? Who knew? I don't know. I know very little. It's not that I don't know anything. I used to go to Sixers games when I was younger and lived in Philadelphia, and they had a great team. But I'm not so much interested in reading a book of fiction about basketball. This particular book, however, is about a young African basketball player from the South Sudan who is recruited by an all-black college in North Carolina. I learned a lot about recruiting in this book. I assume much of it is true because it turns out John Grisham is a huge basketball fan, college basketball. So this young man named Lucie is brought over to this country, to this school in North Carolina, added to the team who, by the way, has the worst record in college basketball. And over time, he becomes their hero, their superstar. He takes them into March Madness, where ultimately they win. It's a really interesting book. I scanned many paragraphs about all the technical things having to do with basketball, just to follow the storyline. It's a good book. When I read good fiction, and because it's well written, I engage completely. I have turned off all the rest of the world for the period of time that I'm engaging with this text. I'm engaging with the characters. I'm right there at that basketball game or in that dormitory or on that campus. I feel like I know Lucie. I feel like I know the coach, etc. Fully engaged. So friends, there's a scene in the middle of the book where this 6'6" man whose skin is dark as night leaves a party around midnight, a party with a lot of his dorm friends, because the stench of pot and the amount of alcohol is way beyond his ability to manage. He didn't grow up in an environment where people abuse such things. So he decided to leave his ride and walk nearly 4 miles back to the college dorm after midnight in downtown Raleigh. Somewhere along the way, he realizes that there's a patrol car approaching from behind very slowly. A patrol car whose lights come on. A patrol car who pulls up beside him so that he stops walking. I'm going to read this narrative to you. Use your imagination. Lucie had been in America long enough to understand the rules of engagement for young black men walking through white neighborhoods that late at night, and he was stricken with fear. The car pulled up beside him and a gruff voice said, "Stop right there." Lucie stopped and waited as 2 policemen, both white, got out and slowly made their way over to confront him. His knees were shaking, his hands shaking. One flashed a bright light into his face, then clicked it off. A nearby street lamp shone enough for the 3 to see one another clearly. Officer Swain said, "May we ask you where you're going at this hour?" He was polite. "Yes, sir. I'm a student at Central, and I'm just trying to get back to campus." "Do you have a weapon? Anything in your pockets?" "No, sir. I'm a student." "We heard that. Please remove your hands from your pockets, slowly." Lucie did as he was instructed. Swain said, "Okay, you're not required to show us any ID, but it might be helpful if you did." Sure. My ID's in my pocket, though. May I reach for it?" "Go ahead," said the officer. He slowly reached into the front pocket of his jeans and handed his student ID to Swain, who studied it for a minute, looked at him and said, "What kind of name is Suleiman?" "African, sir. I'm from the South Sudan. I play basketball for Central." "How tall are you?" 6'6". "And you're only 18? "Yes, sir." Swain handed the card back and looked at Gibson, who said, I'm not sure you're safe in this neighborhood. Sully nodded. Swain pointed and said, Central's to the south and you're headed west. Sully shrugged his shoulders and said, I'm lost. They laughed and looked at each other. Swain said, okay, son, we'll make you an offer. Get in the back seat and we'll take you to campus. It's cold and you're lost, so we'll give you a ride. Sully looked at the car and glanced around, uncertain. Swain sensed his hesitation and said, you don't have to hesitate. You don't have to go with us. You've done nothing wrong and you're not under arrest. It's just a friendly ride, I swear. Sully got in the back seat. They rode for a few minutes and Gibson, the driver, said, hey, you guys have lost the last 4 in a row. What's going on over there? Sully was busy gawking at all the gadgets up front. A busy computer screen, radios, scanners. Of course, he'd never been inside a police car before. And the narrative goes on from there. That's the end of John Grisham's words. They take him back to campus, and the entire way back they talk basketball. They talk about the coach, and they talk about the teams, and they talked about the games that are coming up. And finally they arrive and they return him safely, and he goes into his dorm. Now I ask you, if like me, when that scene began, did you tense up? Amen. Did you fear? Amen. I don't want my imagination messing with life that way, friends. You were probably expecting the worst case scenario. I was. What a welcome relief. What a welcome relief to read, albeit fiction, to read about a different kind of experience altogether. I closed my Kindle and praised God for John Grisham. I sent him an email the other day, thanking him for including that scene in his book. Because now I can use my imagination whenever I think about someone I love deeply or care about, who's a person of color, particularly a man, a boy. I can use my imagination to conjure up that scene. I don't have to conjure up the other scene that plays over and over and over on the evening news. Not that the worst case won't happen again, it will. For a while yet. And friends, it will continue to happen at least in some part because we imagine it happening. That may seem terribly harsh for me to say. It may be terribly difficult for you to hear, but friends, it's true. When are we going to stop and use our powers, use the power of imagination to see things right, instead of repeating things wrong, talking about things wrong? Pardon me for becoming passionate, but I feel a great deal of passion around this subject. We access those pictures just like that. So I invite you to ask yourself what pictures you're accessing and consider whether you want to change them when you do. Change the thoughts, change the pictures. Use this narrative to imagine things differently, to see things differently, to see things right. And by right, I mean an environment of mutual respect, of honor and integrity, of kindness and compassion, fairness. I'm not burying my head in the sand. I'm not delusional. Truly, I'm not. I'm not pretending that the worst case doesn't happen. I know better. But I also recognize my power to see it differently. And I also understand the power of my power. Do you? Of course you do. That's why you're here. I don't want to continue to play that worst case scenario tape over and over and over in my head, because what purpose does that serve? What purpose, I ask you? I choose to picture this beautiful young boy who is rescued and cared for. 2 white policemen. I choose to play that scene in my head whenever I feel myself begin to worry. One of my heroes, Mahatma Gandhi, said, "Be the change." Friends, be the change. Be the change. Use your imagination to see it right. See it right. You know what right means. See it right consistently. Breathe into it. Lean into it. Until it becomes our reality. You know, we're equally capable of imagining the best as we are the worst. You know that. So why not imagine the best? That's how I see imagination being particularly useful to us this day and age. How about you? I encourage you to use it. Please join me in the effort. I love you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Welcome.
Thank you, John Grisham.
Yeah, really.
There's the bond of love. I knew it was on this side.
Where it was.
I think when I dropped your slides in it. All right, Jeff and Linda, lead me, guide me.
This is one of my dad's favorite hymns, and the week that Jeff and I had, I thought this was appropriate to sing today. Oh, we thought it was appropriate.
The your hand from me. I am blind without thy light to see. Lord, just always let me thy servant be. Oh, just lead me, oh Lord, lead me. Lead me, guide me along the way. For if you lead me, I cannot stray. Lord, let me walk, let me walk. Lord, let me walk each won't you lead me? Lead me, oh, lead me, yes. Lead me, oh,
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Jeff. I would invite you now to take your offerings or tithes or gifts and join with me in our offering blessing. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I love to give. And even our friends watching from the comfort of their homes, they can still support the ministry. Any one of these options behind me on the slide. Any questions, just give me a buzz, call me. The most interesting one is Amazon. If you do any shopping at Amazon, you can designate Unity Port St. Lucie as your favorite charity, and Amazon will send us a portion of that purchase into our kitty. It's a pretty simple way to support. Prayer Chaplain Stacy is with us this morning. Anyone wishing affirmative prayer can meet Stacy in the alcove over there. Share yoga with Lana on Wednesdays. Spiritual discussion is on Tuesdays. It's June 16th, 17th, 15th. I'll be here for that one. Prayer circle on Thursdays at 11 o'clock. Metaphysical Bible study, Mondays, 7 to 8:30. I understand that's quite interesting. I'm missing that. I can't get to it, but all right. And Linda returns next Sunday. And thank you all. Thank you all very much for attending. We appreciate you. And Jeff and Linda, great job. And Jeff may have an announcement.
Sorry we didn't have choir rehearsal last Wednesday, but we will have it this Wednesday.
Okay.
It's a little setback last week, but the setback has been corrected, and all are welcome to choir rehearsal Wednesday at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. All right. Let's do our peace song.